Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel where we talk all things finance and investing. Today's video, I'm going to tackle the question of what would I do if I had £10,000, $10,000, whatever, to invest right now. How would I do it right now in 2025? Let's get into it. Okay, so if I had £10,000 in my bank account right now that I wanted to get it invested in the market, this is the first thing I would do, which is to avoid any of the most common traps and pitfalls that I see so many people fall into. So let's rule out the mistakes first, and then we'll get into more how I would get it invested. Okay, so mistake number one, chasing the hot stock. I would not do this. Trust me, if you're having a conversation with a friend, colleague, somebody about trying to get invested into the markets, you're going to be hearing all sorts of hot stock tips that somebody's heard from here, there, and everywhere. They're typically small cap companies, and basically it's an absolute nightmare. I've seen hundreds, if not thousands of people over my 20-year career working with retail investors, people just like you, and the mistakes that they made. And the number one mistake I see people make is getting invested into that hot stock tip that never works. So don't do it. Stay away from it. You will not make money. The number two mistake I see a lot of people get into is no form of diversification. May not be the hot meme stock or the hot small cap stock that everyone's saying is going to rocket 10x in the next year, but they might get all invested in their favorite company like Apple, for example, Amazon or whatever. Could be a great company, but putting everything into one company is going to be a problem. Why? Because your risk tolerance almost definitely cannot handle it. That stock might double or triple over the next 5 or 10 years, but if it sells off 30% in the meantime, you're going to panic sell. So do not get into a one stock, lack of diversification sort of mentality here. The number three mistake I see all the time, and that is people trying to time the market. Everyone's waiting for the market to cut in half, to go down 30%, whatever, and at that point they're going to invest. Guess what? They never do, even when that happens. And the market very rarely will sell off that much. It can happen for sure, but it's only about every 5 years or so. And I'll guarantee you, if it happened right now, the headlines would be so scary you wouldn't go near the market. So forget about waiting for the market to sell off so you can get invested. It will not work because you probably won't get invested. All right, so what would I do with the £10,000 I had right now? The first thing I would work out is what's my time horizon? How long am I putting this away for, and what's the goal I'm trying to achieve with it? If it's anything in the next 5 years that I'm going to need this money for, guess what? It doesn't belong in the stock market. So I would just keep it in a high yield savings account and try and get 4 or 5% interest, whatever I could do until I hit my goal and need the money. But let's assume that that's not the case. Obviously, with a longer time horizon, it gives you a long-term mindset, and that is one of the keys to investment success, for sure. Also, something you need to think about. How would you react if the stock market did sell off 20% after you got fully invested? My guess is if you're not sure what to do with 10,000, you're probably not an experienced investor, and the answer to that question is you would probably panic sell. So if that's the case, you need to think about how much of that 10,000 you actually want to put in, and I'll address it later on in the video. Okay, so once I had the time horizon sorted out, I would now pick the account type that I wish to go into. And if it was long-term, kind of anything 10 years or beyond, I would just put it into a self-invested personal pension if I'm here in the UK, for example, or in something like a 401k if I was in the US, or an RRSP, for example, if I was in Canada. So I would just look at a more of a long-term pension type of investing to get all the tax benefits that come with that. If it was not a retirement, maybe something in 10 years, then I would use something like a tax-free savings account, an ISA in the UK, Roth IRA, something like that where I could get access to the money when I needed it in 10 years' time. Of course, that's going to be a little bit different of a mindset. And the problem with that is you may be more likely to sell and panic when the market sells off and take the money out because you can access it. Of course, with a pension account, you don't have that option as easily anyway. So that's why I would prioritize something like a self-invested personal pension. Okay, now we get right into it. We've got our account set up, ISA or pension account, for example. We've got our 10K in there, but it's all sat just on cash on a brokerage account, and it's going to earn you very little interest there. These accounts are not designed to be receiving interest from, so you need to do something with it. And guess what? Sitting in cash means your money gets inflated away as inflation continues to go on 2, 3, 4, 5%, whatever it is, year after year. So you must get invested, otherwise you're taking a risk and losing money every year. So here is exactly what I would do. I would take the 10,000 and I would immediately park it into a money market fund or a short-dated UK government bond known as a gilt, short-dated being maturing in 1 year or less. Or if I was operating in US dollars, for example, I would buy a treasury bill, something that was going to mature in about 9 months' time. That's what I'd be looking for to do right now. If you're not sure with any of that stuff, I put a link in the description to some videos like on money market funds, for example. So have a look at all of that to get up to speed on some of those products and how they work. But I would park the 10K in that, and that way you're going to get around 4 to 5%, depending on where you're at, in interest, rather than nothing or maybe 1-2% in interest from your brokerage account. Here's now what I would do for the next step. Every single month, I would sell off £1,000, $1,000, whatever, of my 10K from the money market fund or short-dated government bond that I bought, and I would buy into an S&P 500 ETF like VUSA, for example, in the UK, or VOO if I was in the US. Whatever country you're in, you'll be able to find an S&P 500 ETF. Every month I would do this, sell 1,000 and buy 1,000 into that ETF. So why would I do it like this? This is going to spread out the risk, and this is where you're going to be what's known as dollar cost averaging or pound cost averaging into the market. It is best to do it over time when you're entering the market, and it's best to do it in an index fund or an ETF that is diversified. This way you're smoothing out the ups and downs. And this is how great investors do it. Warren Buffett, when he came into his Apple position years ago, he averaged in over a 2-year period, for example. And this should calm your nerves a little bit about getting invested into the stock market as well. So dollar cost averaging 1,000 every month out of the short-dated bond or money market fund into an ETF. Okay, here's where I'd get a little bit more tactical now. If I was going into month 2, for example, and I noticed that that S&P 500 ETF was 5% lower than it was the previous month, I wouldn't just add my £1,000, I would double it and add £2,000. This way, I'd be buying more with the market down. Also, if it was down 10% from the previous month, I would add an extra £1,000 as well. So in total, I'd be investing £3,000 if the market was down 10% from where it previous was. And for every 5% down that it was from the previous month, I would add an extra 1,000. And I would do this until I had around £9,000 of that 10K invested into the ETF. Now, in theory, this should take you about 9 months. But of course, if you get lucky and the market sells off around 20%, then you're going to be in a whole lot quicker. But that's a good thing. Now, this isn't a buy the dip and let it rip sort of short-term mentality. This is a long-term investment strategy, which is helping you buy more units when the market is down with the view of holding it for the long term, not for a quick sell in a year or 2 or 5. This is a long-term investment strategy. Okay, so I would do this till I had about 90% invested, 10% still sat in a money market fund or a short-dated government bond, and I would probably stop once I got to 90% invested and 10% staying in cash. And I would stay with that investment policy throughout the entire time. The only time I would put that 10% in cash to work is if the market's really aggressively sold off. But for the most part, I would just hold a 90% invested, 10% cash strategy through the duration of my accumulation phase of this investment program. Now that works for me, but I've been at this for a long time. It may not work for you. So you may want to consider, if you're new to this, you don't have much experience, you're not used to the ups and downs of the stock market, then you may want to consider just doing maybe 70%, like 7,000, for example, or 8,000, and keeping 10 or 20% in a short-dated government bond or money market fund. This is going to give you peace of mind, and best of all, it's going to help you sleep at night for those times like we had in April this year of 2025 where the market aggressively sold off and there was a lot of fear ripping through the markets. And if you do that and the markets sell off and you're quite comfortable and you don't panic sell, which is a terrible thing to do, then you're probably going to gain some experience and then you can adjust your risk tolerance and maybe move up from say 70-30 or 80-20 or up to 90-10 like I mentioned. So that's what I would do. It's a very simple program, absolutely, and you want to try and stick to this. It'll give you the confidence to get invested and get invested for the long term. Now, you may have noticed I've not mentioned anything like a growth ETF or an AI or renewable energy or any of this stuff. There are loads of different sectors that are going to get hot, and 1 year to the next, it can change. In all honesty, I'd probably rather just be in an S&P 500 that suits my risk tolerance, and I don't have to worry about whether I'm picking the wrong sector at the wrong time. All right, so that's my video on how I would invest £10,000 right now in 2025. If you like the video, please hit that like button. It really helps me out to grow the channel. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already, and leave me a comment and tell me what you think. Is this helpful for you? What would you invest 10K in right now? And if you're looking to be an ISA millionaire, which would be an absolute envy of so many people, imagine having £1 million in your stocks and shares ISA account, all tax-free. I did a video on that recently where we break down all the numbers and the best way to get invested in that. I'll put a link to that video right up here, how to be an ISA millionaire. I'll see you over there. And as always, I wish you nothing but the best in your savings and investment journey.